We are pain, that's all. We are God.
Hey guys! This is part 3 of What If Naruto is Completely Blind. Naruto has been keeping dangerous secrets for years. A long-forgotten dream that just won't die, an ally he shouldn't know and a friend no one thought he had, are what keep him going. Graduating is the least of his problems. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe and check the author in the description. Let's start. Chapter 8, Through the Fire. Sasuke? I panted, eyes flickering around the chakra-enclosed space, trying to get my senses to get a grip on my surroundings and feeling freezing air wafting off the chakra that I could only sense as a wall of blurred energy. I can't, it's solid, the sounds bounce, it's all a blur. Just stay close to me, he gasped out, stepping closer, his footsteps echoing against the stone and making my unsteady perception waver uncertainly. I couldn't pin down where I was or where our enemy was, couldn't even tell how big the dome was. It was disconcerting, more even than stepping blindly onto a road I didn't know, and I moved until I stood close at Sasuke's heels, straining my ears to try and hear something, anything, that would help. How had things gotten so bad this quickly? 1 minute it was a fairly normal day, albeit weird, thanks to Sensei pulling us from tree climbing to help guard Tazuna, and the next, there was shock-cold mist everywhere, sticky blood slicking the floor, Zabuza at Kakashi-sensei's heels and another random ninja on me and Sasuke's. Just stick close, my friend repeated, his clothing shifting as he moved lower to the ground, me copying him straight away. We're gonna be okay, Naruto, I promise. We'll be okay. Just hang in there. His fingers brushed faintly against each other as he formed hand seals, and his chakra began to flare out, Gakekyu no Jutsu. Heat exploded all around the dome, and I immediately guessed at its size from the range of the fire that I could feel, getting something about 15 to 20 meters across. But I couldn't tell how far up it went, or how thick the outer wall was. There was a hiss of steam, water boiled off from the splashes on the bridge, and Sasuke gasped slightly. That won't work, said a vaguely feminine voice, kind of familiar, actually, but I had more important things to worry about. These mirrors won't melt under that kind of firepower. What? I whispered, frowning as my mind connected everything I had heard. Melt, hiss, water, mirrors, ice. That explains the cold. Mirrors off ice, Sasuke had tried to melt them, but they were the walls, they were shielded and bolstered with the chakra that was blocking my full senses, they wouldn't melt from just Gakakyu. I cried out as pain suddenly rippled across my front, the force of the blow, no blows many ow fuck that hurt, sending me flying backwards and landing flat on the ground, Sasuke slamming down next to me a half second later. What the fuck was that? I gasped out, shaking my head violently. I had barely caught that, the tiniest waver of chakra before I was sent flying. Where is he? Sasuke growled, pulling himself to his feet. The real body, where's he hiding? It's useless to try to keep up with me with your eyes, the voice said, coming from everywhere at once, like a whole lot of clones, all speaking at the same time, but this was too sharp and precise for clones, they were always a little out of beat. What was going on? I won't be caught so easily. What should we do? I asked, standing up slowly and turning my head blindly, trying to get a lock on a chakra source that wavered slightly like it was moving, but was too solid to be. It was honestly like he was coming from everywhere at once. Sasuke swallowed, gasping nervously. Just stay close to me, he ordered. We'll be okay, Naruto, don't worry. I gasped in a breath, the cold searing my mouth and nose and throat and chest and so loud rasping over my tongue and my heart was thundering. Where was Sasuke? The chakra around me was echoing, shifting a wall of white noise cold loud can't see can't hear what's going on Sasuke where are you? Naruto move. I heard him shout, and reflexively threw myself to the side. Flashes of chakra and flashes of energy and flashes of hot and cold so deep and harsh and freezing it burned sharper than fire and pricks of force that exploded in shocking bursts of pain as I crashed heavily to the concrete floor of the bridge. Hot liquid was starting to soak my jacket, but I barely registered it, throwing myself away in response to another of Sasuke's shouts, clinking, deflecting. And then blood rushed through my ears as adrenaline took over and everything smashed together in a frenzy of unfamiliar sound. I heard vague swearing, dropped to the floor, tiny prickles of pain that vanished almost instantly, tried to scramble to my feet, tried to hear, everything echoing and rippling and that chakra signature's annoying insubstantial wavering. I do not want to fight you. That makes two of us, I thought, a little hysterically, finally getting my own feet under me again and backing away from where I thought I'd heard the voice coming from, but with all the echoes it was so hard to tell, I couldn't hear. Sasuke, where are you? I do not wish to kill you, the voice continued, hauntingly familiar, but I shoved it away in favor of dodging the next flurry of attacks, yanking a few of the needles from where they'd landed. Senbon, that explained the pricks. It is difficult for me to be a shinobi. I do not want to kill you, and I do not want to be killed by you. Sasuke brushed against my arm and I almost collapsed with relief, or was that blood loss? And slipped into place a half step behind him as we circled the walls radiating sheer cold. My friend was keeping our opponent busy. I could hear them exchanging words, no weaponry thank God, though I was too preoccupied to pay attention, while I searched frantically for a gap in the coldness, a weakness or fault that we could escape through. I had just determined that there were no slips in the wall of icy chakra when Senbon skittered near my feet and I sprang away reflexively, spinning to face where they had come from, but just a split second later there was a flicker from behind me and I dropped to the floor, skidding to the side and regaining my feet as rapidly as I could, scrambling away and struggling to keep my bearings. I'd lost Sasuke again, and everything was flashing and flickering with chakra and splashes of ice cold water. Impressive. Sasuke hissed sharply from just in front of me, and I latched onto the sound, my mind swirling and focusing, and suddenly I could hear again, the world clearing fast. Impressive? My friend snarled. You're beating us around like so much driftwood and that's supposed to be impressive? Sasuke's temper was beginning to kick in. He was usually quiet, up until you pissed him off. I had discovered this inclination at the tender age of 4 years, 2 months, and have never forgotten it. You are surviving, this in itself is no small feat, Sasuke snarled again, but further, the blonde one, you have done well to come this far, in your condition. I have never before seen a successful ninja who could not see. My heart stopped. Sasuke's warm chakra and body heat moved closer to me in response, while I sucked in a horrified, shocked breath. 8 years, 8 long, difficult years, and no one had ever figured it out, except for this one person. Sasuke and his brother, I'd told them, but this person, this enemy, figured it out all on his own, and that scared me to hell. It was hard to see at first, our opponent continued, but now, it is clear to me. You move like a child in the dark, only half sure that you're not about to stumble upon a piece of furniture. You rely on senses that my demonic mirror's technique scrambles. You are an amazing person to have survived this far. But now, I fear I cannot allow this to continue. I must protect the person I hold dear. Sasuke's sleeve brushed my arm, the cold ice that had formed along it making my skin prickle. Please don't hold it against me, he is the only reason I fight. I fight for the sake of his dream, because I want to make that dream a reality. His dream is my own. And for the sake of that dream, I will kill my heart and become a true shinobi. If I must, I will kill you. Oh fuck, I muttered, and then bolted on Sasuke's heels, zigzagging closer and away in a mad attempt to throw off the ice user. Stabbing pain in my back and shoulders told me it wasn't working, but it wasn't as frequent as before, even as I slipped and skidded on half-melted ice and very nearly lost my balance. Then I really did lose my balance as someone screamed. Was that Sakura? Sasuke murmured from above and to the left of where I was sprawled on the ground. It sounded like Inari's mother, actually, I said, lifting my head. Nah, it's just echoing funny. Sensei left shadow clones to watch the house, you told me. It's gotta be Sakura. A smattering of needle pricks across my shoulder blades reminded me that sitting still and gossiping wasn't smart. I heaved myself upright, wondering how much more of this we could take. Sasuke was doing something now, I didn't know what. He was shouting, there was heat, his chakra was surging, oh. He was breathing fire again. I felt panic climbing up my throat as I realized how out of touch I was, how the mirrors and the revelation that this person knew my secret was affecting me. It was just like several days earlier, when I had gotten lost in the sound of the ocean, only 100,000 times worse, because this time as I floundered, I could still perceive enough to know that Sasuke and I were in great danger, that Sasuke was getting hurt. Something connected solidly with my shoulder and I went flying to the left, landing hard and rolling several times. Sasuke gave a grunt that hid pain and, with another wave of crackling heat and flickering chakra, shot off another stream of fire. From the direction the noises were coming in, I guessed he was standing directly where I had been. It took a moment for my scrambled mind to connect the dots, and I pulled myself together and focused just on doing that, clinging to the single lifeline I had keeping me from slipping into the suffocating darkness that always lingered around me. My breath caught when I realized Sasuke had shoved me aside, out of the way of an attack, and had taken the blow himself as a consequence. I could hear the echoing voice of our enemy, hear him speaking to Sasuke, something about precious people, and for some reason, the phrase tugged at a string in my memory. I shook the feeling aside, it was unimportant. I focused on my senses, closing my eyes uselessly to give me a sort of psychological aid, a trick I had learned a long time ago from a teenager I had thought of as a brother. Okay. I was on my stomach on the wet ground, the wooden planks of the half-finished bridge cold underneath me. Sasuke was off to my right and a little behind me, fending off an attack that seemed to come from all sides at once, though whether that was true or I just couldn't pinpoint its origin, I had no idea. To my left. Well, to my left, I could sense a wall of some kind, blocking airflow and radiating cold, the ice, part of the ice dome the enemy had created. I was near the edge of the dome. No one's eyes were on me. I could get out. Not taking a single second to think it through further, I acted on the impulse, jerking my legs up underneath me and dashing for the small gap I knew there had to be right there, because there was a slight breeze and air didn't flow through ice. If I managed to slip out of this bastard's ring of icy doom, I might be able to attack from outside. Or at least drag Sensei's arse over here to rescue us. Wasn't that his job, anyway? I had barely gone 2 steps before something collided solidly with my stomach and carried me backwards a few yards. Someone moving fast had got me a good one in the gut. The someone disappeared, but not before I caught a whiff of the gentle scent of soap and herbs hanging around the attacker. I was so shocked I went limp and forgot to line up a landing. "Don't think I have forgotten you, little one," the feminine voice of our tormentor said. "There is no escape from this place." I heard Sasuke skid through a puddle on the ground just in time to throw up his arms and catch me, and we both tumbled over in a tangled heap as he was unable to absorb the shock of my fall. "Idiot!" he shouted, probably more out of fear and habit than any real urge to insult me. "You moron, Dobe." I wasn't listening, I was too busy staring sightlessly up in the vague direction of where I last knew our enemy to be. "You!" I gasped. "The girl from the woods." "What?" Sasuke hissed sharply. "Oh, yeah, I hadn't told him about her, whoops," but the girl just chuckled. Was it just me, or did she sound sad? "I am male, little one," he said gently. "But yes, I met you in the woods. My name is Haku." "How did you recognize me?" "You smell," I grumbled, shoving Sasuke's arm off my midriff and clambering to my feet. "What the hell is your deal? You seemed nice enough then." There was a long pause, before Haku answered softly. "I am sorry," he said, his words heavy in the frigid air. "I must end this now. My precious person is in danger. Forgive me." Sasuke gave a wordless shout. I was once again shoved aside. Air whizzed as if something was slicing through it, like a kunai only much smaller, slicker, faster. Several quiet think noises, of something sharp and slim striking flesh with a deadly accuracy. Sasuke's breath exploded from him in a surprised whoosh, leaving his lungs empty, and I strained to hear the gasp inwards that would refill them, only to panic when I couldn't. There was a much heavier thump, and my mind pieced together that Sasuke had collapsed. And then my world ended. Where Sasuke had been only a moment ago, there was nothing, just void, no heart thumping noisily in his chest, no breaths that he had learnt to quiet for me when I complained of his breathing keeping me up at nights, no movement I could hear. I could smell blood faintly through the mist, and felt my own heart stop, the darkness swirling around me, fire moving in my gut in response to my waning control. I stumbled a few steps and sank down on my knees with a low moan, for now forgetting that I was in a battle, for now forgetting that I was probably an inch from death myself, forgetting that Sensei and Sakura were still out there. Nothing else mattered right then. I buried my hands in Sasuke's shirt, fumbling a little as I underestimated where he was lying, feeling desperately for any sign of life. There was nothing. He was gone. With a whimper, I buried my face in his chest, vaguely aware of something thin and long pricking me at various spots. Senbon, maybe? Had he been killed by a fucking needle? Haku was speaking. "Is this the first time you have lost a comrade in battle?" he asked gently. He probably said more, but I didn't hear it. There was a roaring in my ears, drowning him out. The pain in my chest, the knowledge that I'd lost my only link to the world too hard to accept, and I swam backwards, using the darkness as a blanket now to hide under, swathing myself in it. Sasuke hadn't just been my best friend, my brother. He'd been my eyes, my hope and my crutch. How was I going to keep limping on without him? In the back of my mind, further than I could retreat, I felt an angry presence pushing forward, and I turned into it blindly, fiery energy licking my face and hands, wanting it all, wanting the pain to just stop. The raging fire swirled and danced and spun tightly around me, and the fury of the barely controlled storm shielded the silence. Kyubi. I can't, Kyubi, don't. Let me handle this, little human. Then the feeling of an immense vehement inferno rushed through my very blood as I lost control. I have no idea what happened next. All I knew was a rush of fire, fire that burned but at the same time felt good, fire that drained away the anger, that filled me up and like a drug consumed me. It took away the ache in my chest, distracted me from it. When I next became aware, I was sitting on the bridge, the wind whistling around me, tugging at my hair. Not in the ice dome, then. Something was sticking to my skin, something liquid but viscous and tangy with a coppery smell hanging about it. It took me a moment to place the smell, and a wave of nausea flooded me when I realized that it was blood soaking my shirt through and drenching my arms, my chest, even dripping down my face from my hair. As far as I could tell, I was sitting in a pool of the stuff, but I wasn't injured at all, and Sasuke, he hadn't been hurt like this. As I thought the name of my best friend, my gut clenched horribly. Sasuke. Blindly, I began to cast about, trying to find some landmark, some indicator of where I was. I had to find him. I was on the bridge still, I was sure of that. There was no mistaking the sound of the ocean below, the feel of the slick wood beneath me. I stood carefully, testing every limb and muscle for damage before I trusted my weight to it, and looked around, my broken eyes mimicking a scanning glance out of sheer habit. I listened as hard as I could, no echoing whispers, no women screaming, no insults being thrown. I registered the sound of people, possibly a battle, a distance away, still on the bridge, and guessed that Sensei was there. If he was roughly where he had been before my blackout, I was too. Roughly. So all I had to do was find Dobe. I froze. The word was tense, standoffish, with none of the usual warmth and affection attached to it, but there was no mistaking it. Sasuke? I stuttered, disbelieving. But you're dead. Hakuke killed you. Paralyzed me, Sasuke's voice came again, and this time I used it to begin the process of locating him, turning towards the noise and taking a tentative step forward. He was only a few meters away. Senbon can, if used properly, induce a state that mimics death. Remember, Dobe? I paused, confused by the venom in his tone. What's wrong? I asked, bewildered. When he next spoke, I could tell from his tone that if I was close enough, if I touched his face I would find a wry twist on his lips. You don't know, do you? He said. You can't remember the last 5-10 minutes, can you? I wanted to deny it, something in his tone warned me to deny it, but I couldn't lie, not to Sasuke. No, I admitted, taking a step towards my friend. You just went absolutely nuts, Sasuke growled. You were completely out of control. I bit my lip, stepping forwards again. A rustle of clothes indicated that Sasuke had stepped backwards, and hurt flashed through me. It must have shown on my face, because Sasuke sighed heavily and moved forwards again, sandals thumping softly on the wooden walkway. I felt his hand on my shoulder, a tentative, gentle force, and I choked on a sob and reached out to grab hold of him, the gravity of what had happened finally sinking in. For a long moment, Sasuke let me cling to him, even though he was probably disgusted with the blood passing from my body to his. I thought you had learnt to avoid these insane moments, he said eventually. I took a shuddering breath and promptly hid in his shoulder. I lost control. I'm sorry, I said. I'm sorry. You were Syuk, you were dead and I just, fuck Syuk, whose blood is this? What did I do? You didn't hurt anyone but the bastard trying to kill us, Sasuke assured me. Kakashi killed the other one, Zabuza. Then a bunch of losers turned up, but one look at you scattered them pretty well. I cringed. Sensei. Sakura. I whispered, very afraid of the answer. I felt the muscles through Sasuke's body twitch as he shrugged. Sensei looked like he noticed something. Sakura was dragging the bridge builder away, probably didn't see or sense anything, he said. Then, something gave, something softened, and he brought one arm up to hug me back roughly. I'm glad you're okay, he said, very quietly. Then, louder, you're really back in control now, right? I considered, shoving at the ever-present demon in my mindscape, making sure he was buried as well as I could manage, and nodded. Sasuke grunted. Good, he said. Keep it that way. Dobe. The word was what pushed me over the edge. Suddenly, I was back to normal. I drew away from my friend and swept my hand over my eyes quickly, before grinning in his direction. Gone was the caustic sting behind the insult, returned was the affectionate meaning it usually held. Everything was okay between us. The stupid demon's stupid outing hadn't damaged anything. Team. Kakashi's log. We had our first large-scale fight today. Everyone did very well. Sakura protected the client, like the genin were all supposed to do, and I took on Zabuza. He is dead now. The boys scuffled with Zabuza's protege, a child by the name, according to Naruto, of Haku. Around the kid's age. He is dead, too, but I didn't kill him. Neither boy will tell me what happened, but I know that Kyubi, or at least his chakra, was involved. I could sense it, the moment it appeared. For a moment, I was afraid Kyubi had been released. When I saw Naruto a few minutes later, I thought the demon had taken control. Naruto's eyes were bright red, and he looked feral, somehow. Animal. He killed Haku. After the fight, he was covered in blood, but seemed to have no notion of how it got there. He complained of being a little nauseous, but otherwise felt fine. He acted normal. Laughing, teasing Sasuke, nothing seemed to have changed. When I questioned him about the fight, he was able to explain in detail the first portion of his battle, until Sasuke was rendered unconscious. After that, he claims to have no memory of how the fight concluded or what happened to his enemy. I do not think he remembers his first kill. Kami, I hope I'm right. Sasuke was a little battered, but the battle was well worth it for him, as he has activated his Sharingan. I'll have to spend some time teaching him how to use it properly when we return home. Sasuke didn't seem to notice anything different or wrong with Naruto during the fight. Sakura was well out of a direct line of sight of Naruto, so she was none the wiser, but I have no way of knowing if Sasuke saw or sensed the demonic chakra or if he was unconscious the entire time. I will have to watch him and make sure he is pulled aside and either fed a part-truth or a deflecting story if he shows any signs that he saw Naruto in his state of less than perfect control. Tomorrow we head home. I want to start Sakura on some chakra building exercises. She has good control, but abysmal stores. Kinda the polar opposite to Naruto, actually. I'm frightened for Naruto. If this gets to the council, there is no telling what they could do to Naruto. NB, have to forget to include it in my official report. If the seal is failing, NB, have Jiraiya check the seal over. If Kyubi were to escape, NB, have Jiraiya check the seal over really, really well. I wonder what Minato-sensei would do. Chapter 9, Separation. Attention, Sandaime Hokage. Memo, requesting 3 separate missions assigned instead of 1. Required to test individual capabilities. Signed. Hatake Kakashi. Attention, Hatake Kakashi. Memo, request granted. See the missions desk for possible assignments. No doubt you've already got something in mind. Signed. Sandaime Hokage. It was somewhat of a relief to be sitting with my back against the railing of the wooden bridge, the quiet rippling of the stream under the planks a soft whisper compared to the all-encompassing roar of the ocean. The bird calls fluttering through the wind were all familiar ones again, none of the unexpected keens and whoops that had ground on my nerves while we were away. It was good to be home. The rest of my team, minus our teacher, of course, was waiting in the morning sunshine, the light warm on my face as it cleared the ridge. I was a little bored, but listening to Sakura desperately trying to gather the courage to ask Sasuke out on a date was amusing. She'd managed to stammer her way through half an overture when Sensei appeared, and in the rush of air I nearly missed Sasuke's sigh of relief. Good morning. Kakashi-sensei chirped, and I found myself mentally comparing his voice to the birds twittering in a shrub nearby. You're late, Sakura snarled, sounding furious at being interrupted. I shuffled into a deeper slouch, uninterested in our teacher's excuse. I heard something about a bookstore and immediately stopped listening. They were well known, our teacher's bad reading habits. I started listening when Sasuke's foot tapped my railing. I don't know what I'd do without him, he was always the one who kicked me awake in class. Wave had been far too close. I have never understood your propensity for dwelling on what could have been. It did not happen. Cease considering it. I didn't have time to spare the suggestion more than an eye roll before all my attention focused on what my teacher was saying. Sakura, you're going to be helping out at the hospital today. The boys are working on something else, so you'll have to have a quick talk to the head doctor to get an idea of what they need you for. She made a startled sound of protest, and Sensei, I swear he gets weirder every day, said, shoo. Shoo shoo. I couldn't help choking with laughter, and nearly fell off the bridge as Sakura walked hesitantly away, pausing every few seconds like she wasn't sure if she'd get called back or not. Sasuke's hand on my collar stopped me from getting extremely wet. Che! You're such an idiot. Be more careful. Already Sakura's absence was obvious, a combination of the loss of her now familiar chakra and the quiet following her usual racket. So whatcha want us for, sensei? I asked cheerfully. Boys only mission or something, sensei agreed in a too-light voice, and I sat up a bit straighter, suspicious. What kind of something? Sasuke asked from above me, moving a little closer. The fun kind, of course. Crap, we chorused gloomily. Kakashi didn't seem to notice our distinct lack of enthusiasm. If he did, he was doing a very good job of ignoring it. Sasuke, the mother of the Hanasaki triplets wants to go to the markets today without the children. You need to watch the three of them for a few hours. I shuddered, and stood up, dusting myself off. The Hanasaki triplets were little brats, although at the very least it was unlikely to turn into another wave. A resigned HN from Sasuke gave his agreement to that thought, at least it's not wave, and I stifled a grin, turning towards the Konohan streets. I didn't get far. Now, Naruto, where are you off to? Kakashi-sensei asked lightly, and I froze, a ball of ice forming in my stomach. Sasuke had stopped moving too, and he stepped a little closer to me. No matter what Sensei threw at us, we knew there was safety in numbers. Sensei shifted, and there was the dry rustle of paper on paper. Naruto, you need to run messages to a few people. He passed me a handful of envelopes, 3 of which I promptly dropped, still not fully comprehending what he was asking of us. But, Sensei, I said slowly, collecting the envelopes that had escaped. He ignored me entirely. Well, you both have your assignments. Hop to it. He was splitting us up. Come on, no time to waste, he urged, clapping a hand on my shoulder and making me flinch as he pushed me away from my friend. Your messages are getting cold, Sasuke's charges are escaping. I twisted around in his grip instantly, trying to check on the Uchiha, and was shoved firmly in the back, making me stumble and nearly drop the letters again. Come on, Naruto, get moving, he said sternly. I glared in his direction before breaking into a trot. The sooner I started, the sooner I'd finish. My heart was thundering in my ears, blood pulsing disturbingly in the fingers clenched around the paper notes, and I realized dimly that I was shaking a split second before I tripped over the curb. Okay, I need to calm down, I thought, gasping for air. Sasuke might be stuck on his own with the triplets of doom, but I have got absolutely no reason to panic. Oh, what the hell am I doing? Who the hell are these letters for, anyway? Damn Sensei, he's probably trying to save on postage. It took me several seconds, and more than one pass of my sensitive fingers, to decipher Kakashi-sensei's calligraphy. Mato guy. Isn't that Anya, Squad 9's teacher? I remember now. I shuddered again, and then sighed. The easiest way to find him would be to listen. Like I'd told my team on that weird blindfolded mission, Rock Lee was bad, his teacher was worse. Tracking him down was far from hard, although as I fumbled through the trees, I know this area, damn it, I felt a stabbing pain developing in my head, spreading from my eardrums. For heaven's sake, why is he so noisy? He was running Squad 9 through a series of numbered drills. I had no idea what said drills entailed, but currently they were running laps as their teacher gave a speech on hard work and the flames of youth. I revised my opinion of Kakashi-sensei slightly. He was weird, but at least not clinically so like this nutcase. Mato-sensei. I called to get his attention, only to cringe and cover my ears as he turned towards me. Good morning, young shinobi. You are one of my eternal rival Kakashi's students, are you not? How may I help you this fine morning? My eyes were watering, despite my attempt at protection. A driving ache rang straight through my ears and drove twin spikes of pain through either side of my head. It took me a few seconds to swallow the agonized whine in the back of my throat to choke out, please, Mato-sensei, not so, not so loud, it hurts. I tried for an apologetic grin. My apologies, young Chunnin. I was relieved to hear a normal volume of voice from him, and cautiously pried my hands from my ears, swiping surreptitiously at my eyes. I am most sorry that my voice was causing you pain, he continued seriously. Such behavior is most unyouthful. My headache was fading already, and I managed a better imitation of a smile this time. It's okay, sir. It's just me, sensei says my hearing's hypersensitive, so loud noises really hurt. I would still apologize for causing you pain. It was not my intention. Now, for what do you require my assistance? I sighed quietly, so many big words, and explained, Sensei has me running messages, and your name was the first one I could read. I held out the paper envelope, the paper almost sleek against my fingers in a way envelopes usually weren't. Handmade or just good quality? Thank you, young shinobi, Guy said seriously as he took the letter, and I relaxed minutely, putting both hands back on my little pile. I can see you have other duties to complete, so I will keep you no longer, young shinobi. Good luck on your quest for my eternal rival Kakashi. He'd started getting a bit loud at the end, making me thankful I'd been backing away the whole time. I bobbed my head in a quick bow, trying for respectful, before escaping back into the forest, the sound of Guy's shouting starting up again as he encouraged his Chunnin. Okay, one down. That wasn't so bad. I could do this. I could do this. Ow, I grumbled, rubbing my cheek from where I had just walked into a tree. Okay, next envelope, what the hell does this say? Sensei's handwriting was still nearly impossible to decipher. Seriously, I will never again complain about textbooks, but I managed to figure it out eventually. At least, I hoped I had, Inazuka-tsum, Kiba's mom, right? I frowned to myself, stumbling inelegantly over a tree root and swearing crossly as I trotted back towards town. She'd be at the clan compound, right? Unless she's on a mission or something, I felt a flash of worry. Would I have to hover around with her letter until she showed up again? It was bad security to just leave a message floating around, but shoved it aside. I'd deal with that if and when it came to it. Even outside the high stone and chain-link walls, it was all too easy to smell that this was distinctly dog territory, and it made the hair on the back of my neck prickle. The weight at the back of my mind shifted, and flickered, but didn't come forward. The noise inside of the dog's barking was near about deafening. The Inazuka and me have never really gotten along. I totally blamed the furball. It was fairly easy to get someone's attention. With the dogs going mad, it was fairly obvious there was someone at the gates, and only a little harder to convince the grumpy-sounding Chunnin I got hold of that I'd only give the message to Tsum herself. The matriarch of the Inazuka clan wasn't as bad as some people seem to think, a little rough around the edges, sure, but that was the whole clan in a nutshell. She didn't like me much, I knew, but she didn't actively dislike me either. The message was met with a grunt and a gruff, now scram, already. The dogs were giving me a headache, so I was all too happy to scram. The next name I managed to translate was one I only knew vaguely, Hagane Kotetsu. I think he's usually on desk duty or something. What's his buddy's name? Izumo? Maybe he'll be at the mission desk. He wasn't, but the Chunnin who was organizing the forms for what sounded like a potential B-rank mission told me the pair was on duty at the south gate again, which at least meant I had no trouble finding them. From there, Kotetsu was an easy question away, and I was down a third envelope. Tell Kakashi I think he's a bastard for sending a Chunnin around with these messages, Kotetsu said breezily, handing me a slip of smooth scrap paper as I turned to go back into the village. Great. Delegated to Messenger Bird. That's a great way to feel needed. Next translatable name on the list is Asuma-sensei, from Squad 10. Okay, I know for sure that they're in village somewhere, because if they weren't, Sakura would have complained about Ino's team getting to leave the village for a mission before us this morning instead of trying to ask Sasuke out. Sucks to be him. Which training ground does Team 10 use? I couldn't remember, but then again, my team tended to bounce around whatever was available anyway. Unless Asuma-sensei was much more organized than Kakashi-sensei, the same thing was probably happening for them. I eventually tracked them down pretty much next to the academy. I hadn't even known there was a training ground that close. The difference between Shikamaru's team and Guy's, or even my own, for that matter, was a marked decrease in noise levels. Chuji was munching on an ever-present bag of chips and doing something with his chakra that I couldn't describe, while Ino was lounging against a nearby tree. I had no idea what she was doing. Shikamaru and the target of my search were sitting on the grass. From the occasional soft clacks of wood on wood, they were playing either Shugi or Go. Asuma-sensei? I eventually piped up to get his attention, when it seemed he was too focused on the game to acknowledge the human-sized messenger bird hovering a few feet away. I have a message from Kakashi-sensei. HM. Oh, thank you, Naruto, he said distractedly, taking the note with one hand and moving a piece with the other. Shikamaru just paused for a few seconds, thinking out his next move, and then clacked another piece into place. Asuma grumbled something under his breath, and the paper rustled. I envy you, Shikamaru, I commented, waiting for the return message Asuma-sensei was scratching out with a pen. Your team is so much quieter than mine. I winced as Ino suddenly barked something at Chuji, and Shikamaru shifted his weight. I don't see how yours could be much worse, he drawled. I have Ino. I grinned. I have Sakura and the person she likes to squeal over. Trust me, you got it easy. Thanks, Naruto. Asuma handed me another little folded slip of paper. Take this back to Kakashi for me, would you? He moved another piece, then swore under his breath at Shika's counter. I grinned again and shuffled my envelopes, looking for the next readable one. Yamanaka Inoichi. Wow, I guess it's true that ninja run in families. Hey, Ino, would you happen to know where your dad is today? I said aloud, tipping my head to look at the girl absently. Ino shifted on the grass, probably a little startled at being addressed. He's either at Shikamaru's, or at work, she replied eventually. Okay, where's work? I pressed. This time of day he probably wouldn't be at Shika's house yet. If he wasn't at work, then I knew where the Nara house was. Ino shrugged. The T&I department. I dunno where it is, though. Oh, that's okay, I know. I nodded cheerfully and ran off, wanting to just get this stupid mission over with. What, exactly, is in these notes, that they're being sent to torture and intelligence? Suddenly I'm a little worried. Finding T&I was, like I told Ino, quite easy. Okay, so it would be hard to find for most people, but, well, actually, I have no idea why I know where it is. It's sure as hell not a place I frequent. Wait. Tachi and I used to get sent here a lot. Me and Sasuke followed him at least once, against explicit orders, of course, but he must have known we were there. Arg. This thinking is making my head hurt. Where the hell is the door? Getting in was a whole other story. I had to stand through 3 pat-downs, a chakra check, and 2 intentions checks. Mind you, the receptionist sounded nearly as bored and annoyed as I did, which made me feel a little more vindicated in being pissed off by the procedure. Plus, the receptionist, no doubt eager to be rid of the annoying Genin who wasn't even a threat, was all too happy to point me towards Ino's dad, who was working through a pile of reports when I knocked. Messenger, I explained, trying not to sound too exasperated. He mumbled something in response as he read Kakashi-sensei's letter, writing furiously with the hand not holding the paper and his mind clearly on something else. Thanks was mumbled distractedly and I scarpered, make a silent vow to never get conned into a desk job. They looked like utter hell. Even the mission desk had to be better than that. I checked the envelopes I still held, the paper slightly crumpled from being clutched for so long. Okay, and this next one is, Shiranui, Jerema? Man, Sensei's handwriting is really bad. Wait, no, I think it's Genma. Who the hell is that? I couldn't recall ever meeting or hearing of someone by the name, but since I still wasn't entirely sure whether or not I was reading it right, I decided to just skip it and flipped the envelope to the back of the considerably diminished pile. There were only 2 other messages, and I eyed one of them with considerable trepidation. I didn't know much about Yuhi Kurenai, except that she was a genjutsu master, one of the newer Jounin, and the 3rd Jounin sensei for this year. Hey, wasn't that Niji dude's cousin in this team? However, Hinata was infinitely less annoying than Niji, or Sakura, come to think of it, and the wild card, Kiba, was apparently having a staring contest with Shino's sunglasses. Hey! That's just what I picked up from Kurenai telling Hinata not to worry, that Kiba wasn't actually going to attack him, and that Shino was probably asleep. It wasn't like I had any visual cues to help. Yuhi-sensei? I asked, feeling oddly shy. HM? She moved, a kind of loose grace in her chakra that caught my attention briefly. Yes, Naruto. Has Kakashi forgotten about the messenger bird system again? She added kindly. I grinned sheepishly in response and dropped my eyes. Genjutsu users tended to be a lot more observant than their counterparts, and offered her the letter, then waited in semi-awkward silence as she made an odd noise, or maybe it was Hinata squeaking like that, and quickly penned a reply. "Would you mind taking this back to Kakashi for me?" she asked, not actually handing me the paper until I nodded. Man, women are weird. All the other people just shoved their replies at me and ordered me to take them back. Kiba and Shino hadn't moved the whole time I was there, and I had the sneaking suspicion that Hinata had been on the verge of fainting, again. Seriously, she must be anemic or something, happens all the time. In spite of all this, I came away with the odd feeling that Squad 8 was the most normal of our year. The only other envelope I had happily proclaimed Ibiki, in Sensei's appalling calligraphy, and I groaned. Wonderful. Back to T and I guess. This time the receptionist took one look at me and my pathetic handful of envelopes and waved me through, mumbling something uncomplimentary under his breath. I couldn't help but roll my eyes, wondering if they had any other form of checking who people are other than that first check, because otherwise that guy just let a potential security risk into a place that handles a lot of dangerous prisoners and intelligence. Okay, Ibiki, I really hope he's not on shift at the moment, I mumbled, shuddering at the thought of the smell of the lower sections. Not that I'd ever been down there, but I'd been around enough people who worked there to know the smell that clung to them had to be 100 times worse. The too familiar weight in the back of my mind perked up a little at the remembered stench of terror and pain, and I shoved it back with an eye roll. It took me nearly 10 minutes to track down the head of TNI, and a further 20 to actually find the office he was, apparently, doing paperwork in. I heard very little ink or pen scratching when I went in, as opposed to Inoichi. "Message from Kakashi-sensei," I announced in a bored tone, all too happy to hand over the second-to-last note on my pile, leaving me with the one I either didn't know or couldn't read. As Ibiki pocketed his note with a rustle of paper and cloth, I had a flash of inspiration, fingering the unintelligible note. "Since I'm down here, would you happen to know who Shiranui Genmai is?" I asked hopefully, and got a grunt that could have constituted either surprise or derision. "Yeah, I know him." "Oh yes. But not where he is," he was quick to add. Some of my elation must have shown a bit too clearly. "Sorry, kid." He sounded more amused than sorry, and I left the creepy HQ for the second time that day, with no idea where to find him, but at least fairly sure that Genma existed. I spent hours trekking over the village looking for Genma, but everyone I asked either ignored me, didn't know who he was, or didn't know where he was. Honestly, Ibiki had been the most helpful, and when the head of torture is being the most helpful, you know there's something up. My head ached, and I had no idea why the furball wasn't fixing whatever the hell the problem was, which only made me grumpier. Eventually, I gave up on ever finding this Genma character and stormed back to the little red bridge, intending to just throw the damn letter in the stream if Sensei wasn't there. Fortunately for village security, my teacher was leaning against the railings lazily, and I heard him shift, probably to look at me, as I got closer, and I scowled at him. "How did you go, Naruto? Who the hell is Genma?" I snapped by way of reply, my temper made worse by the unmitigated thudding of my head. "I've been all over the damn village and I can't find the guy, so if it's really that important, take the damn letter to him yourself. For all I know, you just made him up to annoy me." "Hey!" said another voice, belonging to the other person I had sensed on the bridge. His chakra was vaguely familiar, but clearly not someone's I actually knew, so I had ignored him up until now. Kakashi-sensei was grinning, I just knew it. "Naruto, I'd like you to meet an old friend of mine, Shiranui Genma. Be nice to him, he just got in from a mission." "Genma, this is Naruto, one of my genin. He's been delivering messages today." "Speaking of," I grumbled, thrusting the last envelope at this Genma dude. "Take the damn thing. And you get these." I turned and shoved the return messages I had picked up at my teacher, who started to go through them leisurely. "Oh, what did you get?" Genma asked, his voice laughing. "Note from Asuma, note from Kotetsu, challenge from Guy, paper bomb, Naruto. How did that get in there?" I didn't remember Guy giving me anything to take back. But, assassination attempts aside, nothing interesting, my teacher finished, hand going out to pat my shoulder absently. The unexpected contact made me flinch. "A job well done, Naruto. You're the first one finished, too." I stared at him flatly, too tired to make an effort to hide the blankness in my eyes with a smile. "Can I go home yet?" Kakashi's log. Sakura did well at the hospital. Separated from Sasuke and other influences from her age group, she did better than I'd expected. This kind of arrangement could be beneficial for her. It certainly would be wise to get her some medical training. The people I've spoken with have confirmed she has potential for it. Sasuke wasn't as focused as I thought he would be. He kept losing one of the triplets, and seemed to have trouble getting him back. He also seemed to be very upset with me by the end of the day, though I'm not entirely sure why. Naruto did alright with messages, see attached replies. Ibiki was zero help, told me to do my own job and let him do his, but he was in an appalling mood by the end of it. It seems he had trouble with my handwriting. He was also a bit scratched up, and horribly jumpy. Something in the way he looked at Genma and me. No. That can't be right. I can't believe it. I won't believe it. Maybe. Chapter 10, A Test of Subtlety. Ah! Naruto, what happened to you? Sakura screamed. Naruto, you're on fire again, said Sasuke, sounding bored. I thought I could smell smoke. I grumbled. I've been searching for the damn fire all the way here. Where the heck is it? Left sleeve. I started beating it out immediately. Thank you. Stupid shock tag backfired on me halfway through and blew up a lamp. Scared the crap out of the neighbor's cat. You do look slightly charred, Sasuke agreed, obviously amused. I thought you had the shock tags working. I do, actually, the paper I was using was contaminated, I explained. I'm not sure what the problem was, but it didn't feel quite right. Last time I ignore my gut screaming, danger. Danger. Abort and run for life, I swear, it's a health hazard, ignoring your instincts. I was working on one of my poison tags last night, maybe that had something to do with it. Sasuke snorted faintly. Whatever you like, Naruto. But you were going to work on your flips some more while we're waiting for Kakashi-sensei to show, remember? Oh yeah, I stretched carefully, before springing into a backflip, landing on my hands, and pushing off again to land on my feet. Sasuke grunted non-committally. No, you're still off-center, geez, can't you do anything right? Team, I grumbled, this is harder than it looks. You're still pushing too hard with your right hand and leg, it's turning you a little, the Uchiha reported, sounding smug and nonchalant to anyone's ears but mine. My ears heard the patience and encouragement he was communicating. No one seemed to have deciphered our private language. Sasuke-kun is right, Naruto, Sakura added. You really need to practice. Yeah, well, I am right-handed, I muttered under my breath, trying the maneuver again and stumbling slightly at an unknown terrain change. Stupid rocks. Today, with Sasuke helping me, I was trying to work on a particular style of backflip that I had been having trouble with. Apparently most ninja couldn't see what they were doing with this flip anyway, but they, unlike me, could see vaguely where the ground was. I had landed on my head more times than I cared to count in the past week. On the plus side, I was starting to learn the sort of passive reflection of chakra that was the ground that would have helped when I was learning tree climbing. A poofing sound and a sliver of chakra shaped into a Shunshin signal caught me off guard halfway through another flip, and I curled up a little and went into a side roll so as not to crack my head against the ground. I had discovered that already to be not fun. You're late. Sakura yelled at our teacher, who was probably reading his stupid book again. You know, I'm starting to think he's always late, I said, very sarcastically, propping myself up on my elbows where I was lying on my stomach. Yes, I've noticed that too, Sasuke agreed, also sarcastic. Maybe it's not just a one-time thing. It does seem to be a bit of a habit, doesn't it? I think so, seeing as he's never been known to be on time before. Well, not since he was an umbu, anyway, I mused, before realizing I shouldn't know that. Oh damn. Hey, where had I picked that tidbit up from, anyway? I hadn't had the time to steal Kakashi's files yet, Not a mystery I could be bothered to solve. Kakashi-sensei seemed happier than usual today. You're all dismissed for the day, he said cheerfully, and left. I stared at the last spot I'd heard his voice, mouth twitching. He kept us waiting for that. You know, the hunt down Sensei and kill him plan is looking better every day, Sasuke muttered under his breath. I vote we break into his apartment and set his bookcase on fire. Sasuke chuckled tiredly. Both of us were ignoring Sakura, who was yelling at a teacher who wasn't present. We didn't try to interrupt her. The mission to wave had taught us some respect for female moodiness. We can't do that, Naruto, he's a jounin and our teacher. Plus there's probably something to do with morality in there. Oh, By the way, our sensei said brightly, reappearing suddenly and nearly giving all three of us coronaries, I need to talk to you three tomorrow, so meet me at the Red Bridge at 5 a.m., bright and early. Don't be late. Then he was gone again. There was a pause. I'll bring the matches, Sasuke growled. All three of us chuckled slightly at that notion. Well, what should we do now? Sasuke asked, then automatically cringed as he recognized what he had said. Fortunately, he was saved from a fangirl attack by a scream about a block away from us. Before we even realized what was going on, all three of us were sprinting. As we shot down the street, Sasuke muttered, two unfamiliar ninja, Suna from their Hitayatesh, one's holding a kid by a scarf, 8 years old give or take, one ninja in black, male, mummy-like contraption strapped to his back, second one is female, blonde-haired, looks bored, looks dangerous. I nodded my thanks, matching the three voices and chakra essences I could hear and sense to the descriptions, noting a fourth further off, before declaring, loudly, hey. What do you think you're doing? If three kids dashing down the street hadn't gotten their attention, that had. Well, the male sneered, what do we have here? More Konohan brats. The girl, young woman, more like, sighed. Kankuro, we're not here to make trouble. Put the brat down and let's go. You know Gaara won't be pleased if you cause a fuss. But Temari, he ran into me. And Gaara's not even here yet. The kid made a choking sound, and I literally felt my face hardening. Put him down, I ordered, my voice quieter than usual but with twice the force. You're on Konoha ground, attacking our people, Sasuke remarked from my left. The kid didn't hurt you, so quit looking for trouble, Sakura added, with a tiny spike of killer intent. I snorted slightly, the action perfectly silent. You're here for the exams, not to cause a diplomatic incident that could take years of paperwork to clear up. Now put him down. There was an almost soundless growl from the Suna ninja called Kankuro, and I stared at the spot I could guess his face to be with a stone mask, not glaring, but letting him know that I, and the rest of my team, meant business. And you can come down from there, I called sharply to a tree, the one with a set of vital signs and an unfamiliar chakra sitting on a high branch. I know you're hiding up there. There was the chakra flash of a Shunshin, the sensation a little different to a Konohan Shunshin, and the ninja in the tree reappeared much closer by and on ground level. Kankuro, he said, his voice a cold growl. We didn't come here to make trouble. Put him down or I'll kill you. His voice was totally matter-of-fact. I almost raised an eyebrow at the sudden fear scent flooding my nostrils at the third nin's appearance in the street. Apparently the other two hadn't known he was there, and were very scared of him. With a slight rustle of clothing, he seemed to turn slightly towards us and said, I am sorry for their behavior. Then his clothes rustled again as he turned away. The other boy, Kankuro, set the kid down and the little one ran away instantly, his chakra form immediately rejoining with two others before all three fled. Gaara. You see, what happened was, they started it, the kid, he. Shut up. Right. Sorry, Gaara. I was totally out of line. Sorry. I was probably frowning slightly, doing a full scan of the three's unshielded chakra. It was slightly harsher than average Konoha chakra, probably from the desert environment they hailed from. It made sense that chakra forms differed from place to place. Zabuza and Haku's chakra had felt a little different, too. More fluid, though I hadn't really noticed it at the time. The third ninja, the one they called Gaara, his chakra was something else entirely. It was thicker, coarser, more bloody and hateful. Almost like the chakra of the demon fox Kyubi. Who are you? I voiced aloud, even though they had already started walking away. Their soft footsteps halted, and at least one of them turned around to look at me. Sabaka no Gaara, of Suna, the boy with the demonic chakra abruptly voiced. There was a short pause of maybe a heartbeat. Who are you? Uchiha Sasuke, my dark friend said coolly. This is Uzumaki Naruto. There was a pause before he realized the third member of our team was here. That is Haruno Sakura. Without another word, the three Suna shinobi vanished. Instantly Sasuke rounded on me. What exams? When did you hear about them? When were you planning on telling me about them? Calm down, I told him awkwardly, scratching my head. I only heard about them a little while ago, from the sensei of Team 9. Right, and when did you last come into contact with him? My friend asked dryly. I haven't. I can just hear him shouting about them. I still hear him shouting about them, I added, twitching as a particularly loud bellow reached my ears. How can you guys not hear that? Naruto, remember, your ears are hypersensitive, Sakura informed me. Ours are normal. We just hear the normal stuff, whereas you can hear a Chunnin sensei from 2 kilometers away. Point of interest, I wouldn't class Mato Guy's stealth as being Chunnin level. Think Rock Lee, with adult lungs. I shuddered slightly at the thought. At this stage I think about a quarter of the village knows about the Chunnin exams from him alone. Chunnin exams? Sakura asked with interest. I didn't know they were coming up. The Chunnin have been trying to keep it under wraps from the annoying genin population who will demand to be nominated, I explained. The tests begin next week though, so ninja from other countries are starting to pour in. Even if they haven't heard Guy yet, every genin in Konoha will know about the exams one way or another. Finally, Kakashi-sensei. I exclaimed the next morning at approximately 8 o'clock. I thought you were never gonna tell us. Kakashi seemed confused by that. What do you mean, Naruto? What would give you the idea I wouldn't tell you? Where did you hear about them before, anyway? I, and most of the village, heard it from Guy, I informed him. I managed to filter it out through some babble about the flames of youth and sparring. Figured you couldn't be bothered to tell us about them until the last second to warn us where not to go. Kakashi-sensei gave a definite shudder, one that I noted down as an unusual reaction in Kakashi's mental file. How well did he know Guy? That message last week, what had that been about? Of course I would tell you 3 about the exams you're entered in. There was a pause before my horrified brain managed to reboot. You what? I nominated you 3 for the Chunnin exams, Kakashi-sensei repeated calmly. Even if you don't pass, it will be a good learning experience for the 3 of you. Here are the forms, fill them out and take them to the academy, room 301 on the 3rd floor on the day of the exam. The exam is in 1 week. Good luck. Poof. I really am gonna kill him someday. Hey, I hope Sakura shows up, I announced suddenly as we being me and Sasuke, stood in front of the academy where the first test was being held. There was a crowd of genin from every country, their nationality identified by Sasuke's descriptions and my knowledge of village insignia, except Yuki, which I made a mental note to check up on later, hovering around the doors and fighting to get through. Why? Sasuke wanted to know, keeping 2 fingers on my wrist to let me know he was still there even through the raucous din the ninja were making. It's totally optional, and we'd probably do better without her. Actually, all 3 team members need to be present to even get inside, I informed him, voice low. Before this mob got here I heard a pair trying to force their way in, but they weren't allowed. If Sakura's not here, we won't be entering the exam after all. Sasuke grunted, sounding resigned. Hey, guys, Sasuke-kun, Naruto, came Sakura's light voice from behind us, carefully quiet. I smiled slightly in thanks that she had listened to the explanation of her loud voice hurting my sensitive ears and nodded in greeting. When did you guys get here? About 2 hours ago, I informed her. I wanted to scout out the competition without having to watch my back too much. There's a lot of talent here, and a lot of no-hopers, too. I can't help but wonder how some of them even made genin. They're more cannon fodder than Chunnin material. Come on, let's go, Sasuke said flatly, pushing himself off the tree he'd been leaning on and gently tugging at my orange jacket to let me know we were going. I followed him easily through the crowd, having gotten much better at focusing on an individual's pattern than I had been before weaving around the scrambling genin. I only lost Sasuke once in the mass of sounds and smells, and I quickly found him again, less concerned by the loss of my reference point. Okay, so it still freaked me out. Just not to the point of mental breakdown. We managed to fight our way through the crowd and bolted up the stairs, where another crowd was hovering around a door on the 2nd floor. Why they were so interested in a door I remembered to be the broom closet was beyond me, but I ignored it and made to go up the next flight only to get yanked back by Sakura. Naruto, where are you going, you idiot? To the 3rd floor, I said blankly. But this is the 3rd floor, Sakura insisted, thankfully still quietly. That door there, it's room 301, Naruto. Are you blind or something? I felt Sasuke twitch. Sakura, this is only the 2nd floor, I told her. We need to go up another floor first. That's just a genjutsu, Sasuke added under his breath, and I realized the door had been hinged or similar. Those 2 Chunnin must have set it up, I mused. What 2 Chunnin? Sakura and Sasuke both asked. The 2 guarding the door, I returned, just as confused as they were. No way does that chakra belong to Chunnin. My sensing had been getting better and better since the emergency crash course in Wave. I could sense power levels now, too, and I was starting to get a feel for the slippery shadowy anonymity that indicated a shield, the void that had baffled me when we were fighting Zabuza. Another genjutsu, Sasuke realized, and I shook my head silently. Most genjutsu didn't affect me, but they still affected the people around me. I needed to work on my sensing abilities for genjutsu or my friends could get in trouble and I'd never know. I listened to the sounds of a brawl starting and smirked slightly, shaking my head. Leave the silly Chunnin to their fights, and the silly Chunnin to their amusement. Come on, guys, let's move. As we walked upstairs, my ears caught a conversation somewhere further off, a room upstairs, I suspected. Putting one hand on Sasuke's arm so I wouldn't get lost, I focused in on it. I need to go and do a last scan on the Forest of Death, said a female voice I vaguely recognized as a Konoha Jounin. You have fun torturing the Chunnin with intel gathering, Ibiki. I will, said a male voice, the head of interrogation, if I remembered right. What the heck was Ibiki doing here? It's so amusing, watching them figure out they don't need knowledge, and then fail to do anything useful about it. And they wonder why making Chunnin is so difficult. What's the last question this year? The woman asked, sounding interested. The voices were fading, they were moving away from me, out of my range. The do or die, pass or fail, sink or swim question, risk and pass, or take no chances and fail, was the quiet reply, before they faded entirely. I blinked and stumbled over the last step as I came back to my team. I laughed slightly, then realized Kakashi-sensei was standing idly outside the door to room 301. Hey, Kakashi-sensei, I said, vaguely surprised. What are you doing here? I thought you already passed the Chunnin exam. I sensed a glare being shot my way and smiled innocently. The book was shut with a snap, and Kakashi-sensei said, I wanted to be here to make sure all three of you came. We already know that we need everyone here, I interrupted before he could tell us something I already knew. Hm. Well then, good luck to all three of you. He said brightly. We have such a weird teacher, Sakura sighed, moving towards the closed door. I could hear more people behind it. I went to follow her, then paused and bit my lip. Should I tell them what I overheard? Or would that count as cheating? But we were ninja, playing fair is for samurai. Any advantage we had should be exploited. And I shouldn't hold such an advantage from my team. My hearing was one of the few advantages we'd be able to get, the other Chunnin would have years' worth of experience on their sides. Hey, guys? I said, making them both pause to look at me. In this exam, it's information gathering, not knowledge. Don't be fooled. And the last question is a risk-taking thing, risk and pass, take the safe option and fail. I stopped and scratched the back of my head sheepishly at their no doubt questioning looks. Just, something I picked up, it wouldn't be nice to not share it. Sasuke breathed out faintly. Thanks, Naruto, that could be useful, he said. Let's show what we're made of. I grinned and trotted up to him, and we moved towards the door as Team 7. When did you hear that? Sasuke muttered into my ear. Like, 2 minutes ago. I whispered back. I think it was the proctors talking. He nodded, and opened the door. The sudden flare of killer intent was rather impressive for a bunch of Chunnin, and I raised both eyebrows. Wow, hostile much? Hey, you made it. Came the boisterous shout from somewhere to our right, and I smelled the unmistakable odor of Kiba and Akamaru, plus the rest of their team. I grinned at them, and then dodged to the side to avoid a flying body. Sasuke-kun. Ino shouted as she latched onto her crush. Did you miss me? It must have been so horrible, being stuck with forehead girl on your team. Ino pig, get off Sasuke-kun. Sakura shot back. It's touching, Sasuke whimpered. You wuss, I muttered at him. How troublesome. Hi, Shikamaru, I said, ignoring the shouting match that had broken out behind me and Sasuke yelping that he was going to be torn in two if they didn't let him go. Oh, for Kami's sake, Sasuke, are you a ninja or not? Do a kawarimi. He did very promptly, leaving the two fangirls to drop the tree branch he had substituted with and continue arguing. So, Shika, how's life? Hey, Naruto, I haven't seen you in ages. Kiba shouted, right next to my ear. I winced and listened half-heartedly to his happy boasting, not really caring once the volume dropped a little. It was nice to know he hadn't even noticed me delivering a message to his teacher. Hey, it looks like the whole Rookie 9 is here this year. Team 7, Team 8, and Team 10. Damn. Went up again. I made a show of glancing around as I matched the 6 other chakra patterns and sensed to my memory before nodding. It looks that way. Wonder how long it'll last. Hey, are you saying we're not gonna make it through this? Would you rookies mind putting a lid on it? I whipped around and fought the urge to snarl at the newcomer. I'd sensed his chakra around the village, but I didn't know him personally. Everyone's on edge, and you guys are making such a racket that some tempers are bound to go off. You're the Rookie 9, aren't you? I'd advise you keep your heads down and not make trouble for yourselves. And who are you, anyway? Kiba asked loudly. Me? Oh, I'm Yakushi Kabuto, came the easy reply. Kabuto had a friendly voice, but there was something in it that I really didn't like. I've spent most of my life listening to people talking and understanding more from what they didn't say or how they said it. A lot of people talk to me in false kind voices, so I've picked up exactly how to tell what their real intentions are. I read voices better than most people read faces, and I didn't like how Kabuto spoke. Sure, it was friendly enough, open, light-hearted, but there was a sarcastic tinge to it. A taunting smugness that just screamed at my instincts that something was wrong. A condescending tone in his sheepish chuckle as he admitted to failing the exam 7 times. 7, that's sad. I passed the Genin exam on my 3rd and a half go, so how bad must he be? I narrowed my eyes slightly, backing away a little, before turning around altogether and walking away. Sasuke followed me instantly, and Sakura came after us too, while the other 6 rookies stayed, not noticing our departure to the other side of the room. I don't like Kabuto, I told them flat out once we were out of hearing range. There's something wrong in his voice, his attitude. Stay away from him and his teammates, and don't trust them. Leaf or no, Kabuto is not on our side for this exam. I had no idea how right I was. I just thought he was plotting an ambush, an easy pass for his team later on. I think it was after this that I started to get really paranoid. A door at the bottom of the hall slammed open, and I glanced at it, instantly recognizing 2 of the chakra signatures as Chunnin, and 3 more as Chunnin, 2 of them the signals that had been guarding the 2nd floor door. Shut up, you miserable tadpoles! Shouted the voice I had previously identified as the head of interrogation, and I grinned, knowing this exam was going to be funny as hell. Anyone not in a chair in 4 seconds is disqualified and their team with them. There was a flurry of activity as everyone scrambled for seats, me, Sasuke and Sakura instantly springing for the bench nearest us. Once all was quiet and one unlucky team was chased out for being too slow, complaining the whole way, the man at the front shouted, "My name is Marino Ibiki, and I am your proctor for the first part of this Chunnin exam. My word is law, so if I say you're disqualified at any point, get lowest T. This is going to be a written exam." He actually laughed at the groans of despair and or horror. Yes, a written exam, you miserable worms. Come down here and hand over your entry forms in exchange for a number and your exam. Sit where the number indicates, and then shut the hell up. I stood up calmly and walked down to the front, where people were already lining up to get their papers and numbers. Following Sasuke, I stood patiently on the end of the line, swapped my registration for an exam and a pencil, and then read my number, brushing my fingers over the engraved wooden button. Having brushed my hand over several desks as I walked down, I understood the numbering system in the room, hazarded a guess as to my position, walked over and checked it. Bingo! I am so cool! I sat down and scanned the room's chakra essences, finding Sasuke 2 rows behind me and Sakura closer to the front. The rest of the Rookie 9 was scattered around, along with plenty of unfamiliar chakras as well. Most of them felt extremely nervous. When did I develop the ability to sense emotion through chakra? That was a new one. Had it happened gradually, or had I had a breakthrough? Filing the whole deal away for investigation later, I tuned back in, and I suspected that the sadistic Chunnin up the front was grinning. Now that we're all ready for this, I'll explain the rules. There are 10 questions on this exam, and the marking system is a little different to what you're used to. Instead of being awarded points, you begin with 10 points. For every question you get wrong, a point is deducted from your overall score. If you get caught cheating, then 2 points will be taken from your score. If you cheat 5 times and get caught, then you will be disqualified. If any member of your team gets a score of 0, then the entire team fails. There was a definite groan as that rule was announced, and I frowned. This was information gathering, I knew that already. So we were supposed to cheat, and cheating badly would cost us. But if the questions were hard enough to force us to cheat, and they'd have to be, or the whole test would be pointless, then chances were only very intelligent, or high-level, people could answer them. Which meant there were plants in the exam, Chunnin or higher. My mind was noting Ibiki's time limit setting, you have 1 hour to do this test, and the 10th question mystery, the 10th question will be given to you when 10 minutes remain, and at the same time, I was tracking down the strong chakra sources in the crowd, separating strong Genin and actual Chunnin. I pinned one down as a definite plant a bare 2 seconds before Ibiki yelled, begin. And I flipped my paper. I put my pencil to the paper and listened closely, shutting my eyes unconsciously as I zeroed in on my target, the Chunnin plant. As he started to write, not too fast, fortunately, I copied his pencil's movements, listening to the slight scratches it made as graphite was rubbed into the paper, my sharp ears able to tell what direction the characters were going in, how far apart each new stroke was. This was a skill I had learned in the academy when we needed to copy things from the board. I had taught myself to follow the teacher's chalk movements with only my ears. I couldn't read it from the board, but if I heard it being written, I could copy it perfectly. This guy obviously knew all the answers to the questions, and I copied them all dutifully, finishing a good, 10 minutes into the test. Now I had nothing to do. Great. First I checked my answers, to make sure the Chunnin I had picked out wasn't a moron. They seemed viable, but considering I didn't even understand half the questions, that didn't exactly count for much. Although I was pretty sure the codebreaker was right. Codes were something I understood, my sealing experiences and reading between the lines helping me along. Next I followed the chakra flickers flashing through the room as best I could, recognizing the Byakugan from Hinata, Niji and another Hyuga I didn't know. Sasuke was using the Sharingan behind me. The demonic chakra dude from Suna was using something near the ceiling that just reeked of his chakra, and Ino was stealing answers off Sakura with her mind transfer jutsu. Some guy from Rain, or maybe Kiri, was doing something with chakra and what sounded like needles, and one of the people I didn't know the village of was doing something with bells. And now I was bored again. I flipped over my test paper to find the back completely blank, and couldn't hold back a grin. Now, what to draw? I pondered this for a few seconds, my mind flashing through all the conversations I'd heard today for inspiration, and before I knew it my hand was drawing, flickering over the paper in broad strokes, and I just went with the flow and drew. 20 minutes later, I brushed my fingers over the full-length sketch, raising an eyebrow at what I saw. A young woman, maybe 20 years old, wearing fishnet, a skirt, a trench coat and not much else. Her hair was pinned up at the back but the ends fanned over her head, and her face was adorned with a rather evil-looking grin. Sadistic. Psychotic. Satanic. She was holding a kunai nonchalantly with one hand, her other hand making an unfamiliar seal, the barest hints of chakra shading her outline. I had no idea who she was. No, wait, I did. Her name was Enko, couldn't remember last name, and I had actually seen her face when I was 3, I think. The rest of her, I think there was a report on her making special jounin a while back, and that had a series of photographs in it that I had borrowed temporarily. Apparently I had pieced them together. I stared at the picture for a few seconds, wondering what self-respecting female would wear something like this, before I added a caption underneath, just to freak out anyone who knew this Enko person. And I was bored again. I spent the next 15 minutes scribbling aimlessly on my paper, until finally Ibiki bellowed, pencils down. It's time for the 10th question. There was the sound of more than 100 pencils clattering onto the desks as everyone dropped them. No one dared to make a sound as Ibiki started to speak again. Now, before I give out the 10th question, I'm imposing another rule. You can choose whether or not to take this question. If you choose not to, you and your entire team fail, and you can try again next time. But if you choose to take the question, and you get it wrong, then you and your team can never take the Chunnin exams ever again. There was instant chaos, people screaming, "That's not fair," left, right and center. I pinned my hands over my ears in a doomed attempt to block out the noise and waited several minutes for the din to subside. Eventually Ibiki solved the problem. Shut up. I pried my hands off my ringing ears in blessed silence, ready to block them again if it restarted, but Ibiki kept talking. I make the rules. For those of you who've taken this exam before and been allowed to return, well, unfortunately for you lot, this is my first year proctoring. He grinned. I make the rules, and if you don't want to risk failing permanently, put up your hands and leave. For a few seconds nothing happened. Then someone stood up and bolted, not someone I knew. That seemed to have been the floodgate, as suddenly the teams were dropping like flies. I sat patiently and hoped that Sakura would have the guts to wait it out. Hopefully me telling them beforehand about this doozy of a 10th question would help them to hold out. People just kept leaving, some slowly losing their confidence as the pressure poured on, others snapping in an instant under the strain, and still others holding firm. I waited, sensing the emotional states of the people around me wavering through their chakra, the flashes of disappointment, terror, anger, the whole deal. This had to be a new skill. I'd never noticed anything even approaching this magnitude before. Although I had to wonder uneasily what had triggered it. The girl sitting beside me, Hinata, I now realized, was shaking slightly, her clothing rustling faintly, her chakra flickering with indecision. Another team dropped out, this one a Leaf team, not one of the rookie 9. But it was only a matter of time, wasn't it, before someone chickened out, broke under the mounting stress. Was that killer intent I was sensing? Is that everyone? Ibiki asked menacingly. You're all going to risk your careers on this one question, and if someone can't answer it. There was no response, aside from 2 more teams dropping out. That's it. Well then, you all pass. What? The girl from Suna, Tamari, shouted out. What happened to the 10th question? There is no 10th question. Ibiki retorted. Or rather, the 10th question is the decision to continue, in spite of the risks, even though you didn't know what was coming. There was some startled muttering, and I thought I heard Sakura turn around in her seat to look at me, but I might have been imagining it. What does that have to do with it? Someone called, Grass, if I wasn't wrong. As a Chunnin, do you have the ability to say let's turn back halfway through a dangerous mission, just because you don't have enough information? Was Ibiki's thunderous reply. As a Chunnin you have to take risks. You have to be willing to fly blind in enemy territory with no idea where you're going or what you're up against. You have to be prepared for anything. You cannot turn down a mission because you think it's too dangerous. We are ninja. The ninja life is danger incarnate. I nodded in understanding. The last question was a test of all that and more. A Chunnin has to make decisions that could destroy their team if they pick the wrong option. The 10th question weeded out those who weren't ready to make those kinds of decisions, or weren't ready for the consequences. So you have all passed the first exam, Ibiki repeated. Your second exam will be. The window imploded and I instantly ducked out of the way of any shards. Glass is painful. I heard someone land on the floor and thought I heard the clank of weaponry accompanying it as well, but I focused on the voice now shouting at us. Alright, maggots. I'm Mitarashi Enko, the proctor of the second exam. I want to see you at Training Ground 44, also known as the Forest of Death, in 1 hour. Got that? I winced and covered my ears. Luid. Well? Get lost. Ibiki was busily gathering up all the exams from the desks, some had even ended up on the floor, when Hitaki Kakashi, a jounin of one of the rookie 9, came in, eyes glued to his R-rated orange book. Hello, Kakashi, he said mildly, picking up another exam paper and considering whether to shred it on the spot. What brings you here? The book snapped shut, and Ibiki knew that the other man meant business. I've been noticing some odd things about one of my students and wondered how he was acting around others, as you already know. He mock glared and Ibiki grinned unrepentantly. Ibiki, this might be important. Did you notice the blonde, Uzumaki Naruto, doing anything strange in your exam at all? Ibiki shrugged, picking up another paper. He wrote all his answers down with his eyes shut, for one thing. And he didn't seem at all bothered by the do-or-die ultimatum 10th question. He glanced at another paper and raised an eyebrow. Here's his exam now, he said, noting the message, I'm bored, scrawled around the edge in a continuous border, which didn't bother him. No, what was confusing was the way his answer handwriting was a startling imitation of the Chunnins that Ibiki had planted a couple of rows in front of him. Interesting. Then he turned the paper over, and nearly had a heart attack. Ibiki? Are you alright? You look like your spleen just imploded, said Kakashi, sounding slightly anxious. Without a word Ibiki flipped the paper around to show Kakashi a perfect sketch of Enko in one of her favorite battle positions, her left hand in a strengthening seal, her other one holding a kunai ready for a kuchiose jutsu. The evil grin was more than perfect, and the gleam in her eyes made the black and white image come to life. He read the caption underneath. She's coming. Kakashi's log. Ah! I am slowly being driven insane by these genin. I went to check Naruto's progress in the Chunnin exams, and his handwriting was perfectly identical to the Chunnins he had been copying off. Or rather the Chunnin they assume he was copying off, as no one actually caught him at it. Then he wrote "I'm bored" to make a border around his exam paper. But what took the cake was his new sketch. On the back was a perfect drawing of Mitarashi Enko, the proctor for the second exam, who I'm quite sure Naruto had never met until she was introduced as the second proctor. He certainly wouldn't have had enough time to sketch her then. And the caption was freaky. She's coming. It was enough to scare Ibiki briefly. I have attached it as a reference. Also, before he went into the exams, he paused in the doorway, and then told his teammates the entire purpose of the first test and what to do with the 10th question. There is definitely something going on here. Note, how did Naruto know I was in Umbu? That's it for part 3. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one.